Well, hello there. Welcome back to the channel. My name is James, and here at 20th and 21st Movies, we are about all things cinema. Well, I'm excited today to share with you my thoughts on a recent release from the Criterion Collection. This is a release that came out earlier this year, and it comes in at Spine 1111, and it is the 2020 film from director Kirsten Johnson, and it is Dick Johnson is Dead. This is the 2020 film from director Kirsten Johnson. This film appeared on Netflix, so I believe it is a Netflix original. And again, this is from filmmaker Kirsten Johnson, who is a famous documentary cinematographer. She also has another title in the Criterion Collection that comes in at Spine 853 called Camera Person. So this came out a few years ago. It captures several documentaries that she's put together over the years and she's captured that is very fascinating to watch. And I highly recommend sort of pairing these two together, that if you get Dick Johnson is Dead, definitely pick up Camera Person as well. It makes for a good double feature and really gives you a lot of insight into the filmmaking and the great work of Kirsten Johnson and a lot about, the things that are near and dear to the heart of this filmmaker. So this edition from Criterion is Dick Johnson is Dead. And I will tell you, it is a premise that is one of the craziest, wildest premises that you will ever encounter. And I'll read the description just to give you an idea of what I'm talking about. Dick Johnson is Dead. This playful, profound, and immensely moving docu-fantasia by Kirsten Johnson is a valentine to the director's beloved father, Dick Johnson, made as she is beginning to face the reality of losing him to dementia. Using the language of cinema both to defy death and to confront it head on, Johnson mischievously envisions an array of ways in which the man she loves most in the world might die, staging a series of alternately darkly comic and colorfully imaginative tableaux interwoven with raw verite footage, capturing the pair's tender but increasingly fragile bond, tackling taboo questions of aging, mortality, and grief. With subversive humor and surprising grace, Dick Johnson is Dead is ultimately a triumphant celebration of life and of the gentle, funny, unforgettable man at his center. Long live Dick Johnson. So the premise of this film is very odd in that it deals with a daughter who's a filmmaker who has the opportunity to film her father in a variety of different situations that basically stage how he might die. And it's very fascinating. From that standpoint. And when you hear that premise, it might be a little bit off-putting, but I will tell you that when you watch this film, it is really quite an experience because this film really does deal with the whole idea of course, in this case, this is Kirsten Johnson dealing with the reality of her father, going through this stage of dementia. He's getting older, getting up there in years, I think around 90 years old. And he's dealing with dementia in the latter stages of his life. And so she's facing the reality that he won't be with her much longer and just coming to terms with that. And a large part of this film really deals with how people sort of process that reality from the perspective of the person who's going through it and what his experiences are and how he feels about the current stage that he's in, how he feels about going through dementia, the potential burden that could put on his family, and really spending time contemplating that and seeing how he's processing it, but then also seeing how he has processed his life before, in the life with her mother, who had passed on a few years ago, who's featured in Camera Person, but also just reminiscing on the times of his life when he was younger as well. Dick Johnson is a psychologist. Of course, he's retired now. So it deals with, some of his time during his practice, but it's really a great spotlight on the life of this man who is the most important man in the world of this filmmaker. And you really get to see how much she loves her father. And just the prospect of losing him is something that is very hard to process. And you get to see that and you really feel that watching this film. You really get to understand how people, just process this whole idea of dealing with aging parents, seeing this stage of life, and just dealing with those realities that so many of us will eventually have to deal with at some point in our lives. So it's a great film from that standpoint. It does have those morbid moments where you see these different scenes play out, are very bizarre, but this film has a ton of heart to it that makes it extremely unique. And it's definitely a premise that I've never seen before in any film. And it's a premise that you'll probably never, ever see again. And what I love about this film, and the reason why I highly recommend pairing these films together, is this film here is about Dick Johnson and about the relationship between a woman and her father and how they are dealing with and processing this stage of life. But it also deals with and has connecting points to this documentary here as well. Because while this film is about Kirsten Johnson's father, Camera Person features as one of this documentaries Kirsten Johnson's mother. So her mother dealt with dementia as well. And so she had the opportunity to capture her during the later stages of her life as she was going through dementia. And it was the sad stage at which she had already basically been gone and she didn't remember who she was. And that was a very sad aspect of the portrayal in this story. But this does show Kirsten Johnson's mother as one of the documentaries in here. And then by the time you get to this documentary, you see Dick Johnson. He has not progressed to that point. He does know who Kirsten Johnson is, his grandchildren and the people around him. So the dementia had not advanced to that stage yet, but it deals with, the contemplation of what will that be like when that does happen. Would I be a burden on my family? How would I feel about that? I love life. I love living. And you really feel all of that watching this film. This is just a really heartfelt film. It's very unique. It's different. It's different than anything I've ever seen before. And it's definitely a film that I would recommend if you're open to this type of a film. So this is the kind of film that I would recommend if you go into it understanding the subject matter, if you're open to that type of an experience and the heartwarming aspect of it, the heaviness of it, really dealing and grappling with difficult issues about life and death and aging, this is a great film. And coupled together with Camera Person, I really cannot recommend coupling these two together enough, because by watching these two films, you really see the heart of a filmmaker in the sense of really understanding two of the most important people in this director's life and how she dealt with their, moving on and losing the two most important people in her life. And you learn a lot about the filmmaker seeing these two films. And it's just an amazing experience. And I know I'm rambling on, but I'm rambling because this is an unusual film. And that's really all I can say. It's a film that I highly recommend if you're open to that kind of experience. Now, as far as what this film is like on Blu-ray, it's a 2K digital master. It's approved by director Kirsten Johnson. You get a 5.1 surround DTS HD master audio soundtrack. The presentation on this film is great. So this is a 2020 film. It's a fairly new film, of course, only been out a couple years, and it has some great high definition presentation on this standard Blu-ray. So as far as the sound, it sounds great, nice 5.1 surround sound. And when they stage these different accidents and events, you can hear the different, surround channels are utilized quite well. And I think the sound design of this movie is excellent. And I'll get to that in a minute, because one of the special features on here is a special feature you'll definitely want to watch. But one of the things I loved about this film is that you also get to see, in addition to all of the heartfelt, heavy, emotional aspects of it, you also get to see the process of making movies. So I really did appreciate that aspect of this film, because you do see the behind the scenes, use of stunt doubles and the way that they, do certain shots. So you see a lot of that movie within a movie aspect in Dick Johnson is Dead. So I really enjoyed that aspect of watching this film. As far as the special features, of course, you get a commentary on here featuring Kirsten Johnson, the co-writer and editor Nels Bangerter, and documentary sound recordist Judy Karp. You get a new conversation with Johnson and her fellow producers Katie Shivney and Marilyn Ness and co-producer Maureen A. Ryan. That was a really good discussion between the four of them, because they talked about the process of coming up with this concept for this movie and how crazy it was, and the initial pitch for that, and how they had to sell that in, and everything that went into getting to a point of being able to make this film. So that was a really good conversation. You also get a new interview with sound designer Pete Horner on here. And in my opinion, that's probably the best supplement on this disc, the sound design interview with sound designer Pete Horner, because that is an example of Criterion Film School in the Box, that supplement, because he walks through the whole process of sound design, that the sound that you hear in movies is not the sound that they initially picked up, but is part of a sound design. So like the street sounds are put in post-production, and most of what they're capturing when they're shooting scenes is they're just trying to capture the dialogue. So afterwards in post-production, they'll put in the other sounds, like the ambient, sounds around, the streets, or if it's a playground, they'll put in those sounds and children's voices and background noise, and all that other stuff is part of the sound design. So Pete Horner actually shows you in the program the different layers of sound and the soundtracks added for each of the scenes. And it's just a great, great lesson in sound design and film, and just the process of making movies, and why I think Criterion, this is a great example of Film School in the Box. So that sound design supplement with Pete Horner is highly, highly recommended. And I'll also hold up here this edition, One Night in Miami, because it has on here a special feature as well that deals with sound design. It's the new program on the film Sound Design, featuring sound editor and mixer Andy Hay, sound mixer Paul Ledford, and music producer Nick Baxter. So similar to the sound design feature on here, this edition has an excellent sound design feature on here as well. So if you want to know more about sound design and you have these editions in your collection, definitely check out those two supplements. So excellent supplement with Pete Horner on sound design. You also get a new program with Kirsten Johnson, with Bongarter and filmmakers Mike Mills, Michael Moore, Joshua Oppenheimer, and Laura Petrus. So you do get some nice special features on the disc here. You also get on the inside some pretty nice disc art on the disc. You also get this little fold out here as well. And then you do get a little bit of, I'm not sure if you can make it out on here, but it's like rays that I think is nice artwork there on the inside of the case. But here you have the booklet, not booklet, but the fold out with some nice pictures. Of course, you have Kirsten Johnson and her dad, Dick Johnson, here. You have Kirsten Johnson, pictures of her filming scenes and with her father. But then on the inside here, you have this essay called Falling Angels by So Meyer. That's excellent. Highly recommended. So really enjoyed this edition from Criterion. Again, this is a film that I do recommend if you're open to this type of subject matter. It is a difficult subject matter, and it's a subject matter everybody may not necessarily want to, explore. So I can kind of appreciate that. So I would just say that going into it, as long as you're aware of what you're getting into, and if you're open to it, you will definitely get a lot out of watching this film. It's very heartfelt. It's very, thought-provoking. And in many cases is something that a lot of people can relate to in terms of their own experiences, having gone through something like this, or maybe a phase of life that someone might be getting ready to go into. So definitely recommend Dick Johnson is Dead if you're open to this subject matter. But let me know in the comments below what you think about this film. Let me know what you think about Camera Person from Kirsten Johnson as well. Let me know what you think about these films and about this filmmaker in the comments below. And as always, thanks for watching, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time at the movies. Peace.